Morning, everybody. Natalie coming to live. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here. Yum, yum, yum. La, 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 la. Okay. Hopefully the audio is good. I'm going to check it on my own phone. Um, that's what I do when I have my phone. First thing I get on my own Spirit and coffee, and so that I can see who's on here. Let's see. Oh, good. It looks like the voice or the sound is actually working, so that's a good thing. So I didn't get on yesterday, and I just wasn't feeling it. There are days when you're gonna feel like resting, and something that I've been telling myself that's really important is to allow myself to rest when my body needs it. And recognizing that I myself am a doer. I like to do. So I'm in constantly doing, moving this, that, the other. And then when I don't feel good, I push through it rather than allow myself the rest and relaxation. And I think that leads to probably more harm than good for me. And so I'm trying to find the balance for myself. I think that there's a healthy balance between the both, right? So not always saying, hey, I don't feel good and selling that on yourself, but when you don't feel good and you know that you're a person that continues to go and go and go and go and go, when those days come that you say, you know what, I'm going to take a day off and that's okay. And I'm not going to make myself wrong for it. And I'm going to enjoy the time. I didn't even get up, do my workouts yesterday. I was just not feeling up to it, and I allowed myself to rest. Didn't mean that I wasn't productive during the day, because I am very honored and just want to say thank you to St. Clair College in India, that I was able to present to their staff, or their faculty and staff administration, or teaching and non-teaching as they call it. And I was able to do a two-part presentation for them. So I can say I'm an international speaker. That's really awesome. And they're amazing. And I was very honored to be a part of that, and very grateful. And hopefully I can actually go out there when everything is open and actually meet them in person and deliver the message in person, which would be awesome to interact with them, and help them create a quality of life. So part of what we discussed is achieving goals. And so how do we achieve goals in the time of, this pandemic, where individuals may not be really feel like they can reach their goals because sort of life has stopped for them in some way. And not because they wanted it to stop, but because all of these policies have been put in place where they're not able to truly do what they normally would, the activities they would do. Perhaps they had fitness goals. That's an easy one to talk about for me, because I have fitness goals. And perhaps the gyms were closed, whatever it was that happened, circumstances and conditions showed up, right? Good morning, Tina. And when the circumstances and conditions showed up, then they sort of said, well, how do I continue on this goal when I don't have the support I need, or I'm not able to get the things that I need? And that's where I was talking about pivoting and changing your mindset and working with what you have. And I think that that's the critical point where we are right now, is understanding how to work with what we have, instead of seeing the scarcity or the lack and limitation of what is happening, right? And that might not be easy for most. And it's okay if you're feeling that, right? If you're actually feeling the lack and the limitation. Good morning, Auntie Christina. I haven't seen you here live for a while. I see you get on, but you're never on when I'm actually live. So it's good to see you live. That, some people feel that, the resources, that they don't have the resources, and are trying to figure out how they, maybe keep their head above water during this time. It is a hard time, and it is a critical time for us to, sort of come together and support one another. Me, the way I know how to support is to talk, because I talk a lot. I'm just a talker. Talk. But trying to share at least some wisdom that can support you in some way, right? But it's your life. So good morning, Curtis. How are you? So it was just a great honor to be a presenter for the faculty and staff in India. And now it's looking at the opportunities that are available to you, right? So this particular presentation opened up now the opportunity to go to India and work with the faculty and staff at the college is available, right? And so we're going to be talking about what I can do so that I can go out there and actually work with them individually. And really, so, what was it? I kept telling my friend Prashant, I would love to be there face to face rather than do this over the internet. And, at first he was weary. He's like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. And so for me, I said, well, I want to work with them personally because I want them to have a good quality of life. I want to support them with having a good quality of life. So the presentation itself, even if it was sort of impersonal because they were behind the screens, really was about them, right? Them creating their life, them being able to understand how these particular concepts work within their own life, right? Because I tell people, my life is my life. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. What are you doing with your life? That's what's important. Not what I'm doing with mine, but what are you doing with yours? And understanding with clarity what it is that you want to do. What are you passionate about? What is that thing that entices you to move into action? What is the one thing you could commit to daily that you just love to do and just do it over and over and over again? Well, Spirit and Coffee, I've been doing it for, nearly 3 or 4 years, I think 3 years. Anywho, in that time, my friend Prashant, who lives in India, watched me and was like, you're very well, you're articulate. Would you mind presenting for us and my staff? And I said, absolutely, of course. But it was a lead up to that, right? It's giving back, right, to humanity in some way so the opportunities can arise for you, right? It's being able to share your information. It's being able to truly care about how you're touching the lives of others, and really care. And part of it is it's this too can be impersonal because it's really hard to receive feedback or to be able to hear your point of views because again, you can type it out, but again, it's not that we're talking right face to face. So I can't really fully hear your point of views, and that's okay because I honor, where you're at and what you're up to. So these opportunities. So in the time of lockdown, right? And I don't know where other people are. I know some people are in New Mexico working with what we have rather than focusing on what we don't have. And that's just a form of gratitude, but also abundance. That's kind of an abundance mindset where our mind focuses on all the tools that we have available to us. So we're saying, well, what do we have here? What can we utilize? Maybe we have this and maybe we need to pivot. And what are my goals really? And how do I reach my goals within the structure that I've been given? So you've been given some sort of something, you're not completely with nothing. And it's utilizing those resources that are available to you in the moment. And then having gratitude that they actually exist and that they're there and that you have them. And so for me, it was really just redesigning my life. Now we're all going through what we call the dark night of the soul. There's a lot of a lot of things happening. Individuals are experiencing, a lot of sadness or hurt or pain, or they're going through a lot right now. And so it's really saying, how do I get through this, right? How do I move myself through this dark space so that I can continue to grow within the construct of this space? How do I grow within the construct of what's been given to me? So when we look at it as a structure, right? And when I talk about these paradigms, living systems, and I love the living systems paradigm model because I think it's a little more progressive than probably a holistic or integral approach, which is holism means we include all of it as a whole, right? We've integrated sort of all of these scientific concepts and we've put them into a structure that includes the both. And then we have living systems, which says that sort of nature is part of this big web and system, and that everything that we do has an impact on everything else. It's kind of like the cause and effect way of looking at the world. And this particular web that we live in, right, is impacted. And so how do we live within that web? Are we getting caught up in the web, or are we moving around in the web? Are we helping to build the web? What is it that we're doing within the web? And it's almost like, can we live outside the web? No, because if we thought of God as this big weaving interaction between different parts, right, and the whole system, we can never be outside the system of the web, that it's all interconnected and one is dependent upon the other. And so there's an impact, right, in the way that we approach life, and there's some consequence or some ripple effect, right, that goes down and down and down and down. So if we looked at ourselves from the living systems perspective, and that's, I love that. Again, I love it because it looks at nature as a system, it looks at all the parts, not as an individual thing, but as a working system together. And so really looking at the structures, okay? And part of the presentation that I did was telling them, let's look at the structure of the organization as a whole. As a whole, right? We sort of have these things that we have within the whole that we've got to report to, right? We've got to say, well, if it's accreditation or if it's something where there's these things that are telling us. I'm not saying structures are designed perfectly, but if we're within the system, right, how do we begin to construct our own system within that system for the betterment of us, right? The betterment of our health. Good morning, Rick. So there's sort of a lead up. So we kind of look at the entire structure as a whole, and we say that nothing is outside of it and that everything's interdependent upon it. The very system that we live in is dependent upon how we approach it. In other words, there's a tree outside of my house, and I love that tree. It's an apricot tree. And so if I don't water the tree, or if we don't pay attention to the tree, right, the systems within that tree are going to die, and who knows what impact that's going to have underneath the ground, because that system, the roots of the ground, have a living system within them. And if something happens in that system, it impacts what we see on the external world. You could see this as your subconscious mind and your conscious mind, right? I like to use the tree example for that. But then let's think about a web, right? Let's think about a web. If we thought about a web, and I've talked about this before, and it's this huge web, and although we may feel separated, like maybe we're here on the web and somebody's over here on the web, and so we feel like we're separated, we're still interconnected through the web. So again, what we do, it actually has an impact. And so we can see this in the world today, and how things are shaped and how we have made an impact to the planet itself. So it showed up in how we've actually treated our planet and our mother. And so what do? It's like this big thing. And I talked, it was funny because I watched this movie called Mind Walk, which is it's a good movie if you want to understand the different paradigms that have been sort of shaping the way that we view the world. And Mind Walk really gets into the living systems. And it talks about how we've led up to the living systems, but how everything is impacted. But the one thing that I learned, or that I noticed about the living systems, is that the human themselves become isolated. And so perhaps it's because we don't have the models to live in communion with one another under this particular structure or construct. I think that was more of an approach that maybe the indigenous people had a long time ago, or people who are living out in the forest, though, that are not touched by society, or even this type of technology, that they are the ones who actually are living with nature, not against it, but with it, right? Not forcing it to be something that it's not. So I think that we've sort of come to a point where we're really sort of damaging everything. And a lot of it has to do with the structures. People say, well, do this, do that. It doesn't matter. I mean, you can go and you say, well, I'm going to throw trash, I'm going to do this, and that does help. I'm not saying that. But until the mindset from the larger structure shifts into a new way of looking at the world, until science starts to embrace, right, this new viewpoint, and people start to integrate it into their structures of, religion and commerce, and all these different structures, agriculture, we're going to see that it's a big mess. So how does that work into your goals and what I was talking about? It does. It's all interconnected. So remember that you are a living organism. Okay. You're a living organism, and the whole of you is not just based on one part of you. In other words, you're not just a heart. You're not, if you took your body away and just had a heart, would you have a human? No. You're not just a brain. If we took the brain out, would you have the human? No. If I cut my arm off, and would my arm move? No. It's all interconnected. It's all part of the same whole. We all have, so the entire organism is the structure itself. Now, the substructures that make up the human, right? So we have the substructures, which are what? Like our heart, our lungs, all the pieces that make us up, uniquely you. Those parts are all impacted by the entire system. So the structure. So looking at your own structure, right? It's looking at yourself. How do you treat yourself? How do you treat your body? How do you treat your living system? And we could break this down into the goals that you have for your life. What are the goals? And how do I want to attain those goals? How am I moving forward? What is the essence of who I am? And really allowing the essence of Spirit of God to move through us and be a walking vessel of Spirit, and allowing that to move so that we're in action. Okay. And there's action behind it, right? There's action that sort of moves us through this world. It's the energy, the metabolism. That's another thing that they talk about in living systems that I really love, is the metabolism. The understanding that we are energy that moves through us. Metabolism, the ecosystem has a metabolism. And I didn't really know that. I didn't really understand that concept until I was in my class. I was like, oh, I thought metabolism was just how fast we can burn off food. But our living systems have a metabolism, and that's how the energy is moving through our bodies. And if there's obstruction, then we cannot metabolize that energy through us, or it goes slower and it slows us down. Good morning, Rael. The energy being, spirit. That's what I call it, spirit. It's the spirit that moves through us. And it becomes obstructed, right, if we're not taking care of ourselves, or we're not using the energy. And the biggest way to understand this is through, like, good morning, Louise. Good morning, Jennifer. Is the easiest way to understand this is through health and nutrition and fitness. If you eat a big meal, that's potential energy in you. And that potential energy in you would like to just come out, right? It becomes the waste product. So the earth itself has waste. The earth itself has these waste. And then the things that eat the waste sort of have this ecosystem. And so it goes like this, right? There's things that eat waste. It was designed that way so that it's self-sustaining. And that's another thing, self-sustaining, right? There's a difference between an innate object, right? If we looked at an organic object, if we looked at us as a living system, we are self-sustaining, but we eat and we can live. But if we don't eat, right, it's like this. If I just let this sit here, this mug sit here, it'll eventually decay. It'll eventually fall apart. It can't feed itself. It doesn't regenerate itself. It just is. We regenerate ourselves. That's the metabolism that moves through us. It's the energy that moves through us as waste comes out. And so if we had the big meal, right, then it would be like, okay, now I can go work out, or I can move so that I can use up the energy, let go of the waste, right? And then that way I'm self-sustaining and I feel healthy. That was metabolism. And for me to understand metabolism from that perspective was big, because I just thought metabolism was like hormones, and I don't know what I thought it was, how fast you can burn food, whatever. But it's the actual living force, the life force that moves through us. You could say it's God that's moving through us. And if there's obstruction there, right, then we start to experience some emotional disconnect or discomfort. That was like a big mind opener for me. I was like, wow, I didn't, realize. And so the earth itself is metabolizing. The earth itself has a metabolism, and we are sort of obstructing that from the natural process of the earth self-generating. We become the obstruction. Good morning, Adriana. So how do we use this for ourselves? Well, I would say, if we focus on ourselves, focus on our health, and say, how am I using my energy? How am I metabolizing my energy? Am I allowing the energy to flow through me? Or is the energy obstructed and stopped, and it's not flowing through me like water? So you think of the spirit sort of like water, like running over your body. That's the life force of God, just sort of running through you. And the obstruction happens, right, when we are basically not paying attention to the body, that, the body, the life force of the body, the living organism, and there's obstruction. And when that obstruction happens, we experience some discomfort in, I don't know, anxiety, depression, sadness, whatever it is. And there's that discomfort because there's this disconnect between the spirit, or not disconnect, but there's an obstruction not allowing the spirit to fully move through you. Fully, the energy, you can call it energy if you want, right? We could give it all these different names, to move through you so that you can burn up the energy and there's no obstruction. Become a self-sustained organism, right? And the less obstruction, the better quality of life. And it all interconnects. Hey, Suzanne, it's really quite amazing how it all interconnects. It's just, when you start to understand that everything is interconnected, you get the whole picture, and nearly every topic that's brought up, you can engage in, because you see the interconnections between all of it. It's not separate from one another. And I had a friend who was like, Natalie, you do a lot of different stuff. So I do nutrition, and because it's all interconnected, there's not a separation. And for me, the reason I see the interconnections is because I put spirit first. Spirit is always the first thing. Spirit, right? And then mind, and then body. So it would be emotional body, mental body, but the spirit itself becomes this overarching thing. So when I construct my life, I construct it with the spirit first. And then after I do that, I let it flow through me. And then there's obstruction, right? So obstruction happens in my life, of course. And I'm like, oh, wait, there's obstruction. Am I in spiritual integrity? If I'm not in my spiritual integrity, and I don't know why this is the symbol, but it is. If I'm in my spiritual, I guess this means whole. If I'm in my spiritual integrity, then the spirit moves through me, opportunities arise. But if I'm not in my spiritual integrity, the spirit's still going to come through, and I have to ask myself, am I stuck here in my brain? Am I stuck in my heart, my emotions? Am I stuck in my physical body? Where is it that I'm stuck? That the spirit's not able to wash through me effortlessly. And you know you're on the right track when opportunities arise. Opportunities are going to arise constantly when you're in integrity, one after the other. That's how you know you're in integrity. God gives you gifts, little gifts here and there, little hints, little clues that you're on the right track. Like, oh, I don't know. Here's the gift. For me, the gift was to be able to connect to India again and present to their university. It was a great honor for me. And then perhaps not perhaps, but stay connected and actually go out there and teach them. That for me was a huge opportunity, and it was a gift from God because I allowed myself to stay in spiritual integrity here, holistically, let it move through me, drop into my heart, and do what is best for Natalie spiritually. So again, you're a living system, you're part of another living system, and everything's interconnected, not separate. And then when we learn that and we understand that for our own self, then we can start to say, all right, how do I co-create? How do I partner up? It's like, all right, spirit, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do together? How are we gonna do this together? Let's go. It becomes this greater impact, right? It becomes a greater bond between you and God. That bond just starts to totally integrate into one thing. And it becomes the operation of your life, not separate from it. You become God in motion, right? God is moving through you. Do you stay there forever? No, you fall off. I fall off all the time. I fall off all the time because I'm human and I make mistakes and I'm not perfect. So I have my fall offs, right? But I have to get back on, and I get back on, and that's what I do. I get back on. Okay, God, what did I do? Let's assess this situation. Did I totally screw it up? Yeah, I did. Okay, sorry. Let's try that again. let's redo it. Let's see what else we can, come up with. But we're human. So again, it's okay if you fall off. It's just get back on or don't. I mean, it's totally up to you. But I would say, why not get back on? Ride the wave of blessings, right? Because that's what ends up happening is God becomes the, gives the blessings to us over and over and over again. So there you have it. As I said, I rested yesterday, felt really good. I was just not feeling it. And then I had a presentation the night before. Indian time is different than our time. So I was presenting at like 9:30 p.m. until probably 10 o'clock at night. And then I was so excited that I could go to sleep. So then Monday I said, nope, I'm just going to rest. I didn't even work out. But today I'm going to go work out. So salute to working out. And then I get to work on my work, and then my master's program, which has been an amazing journey. Also, the Healing Through the Dark Emotions, this book is really good. I highly recommend it if it's something that you want to know, because it really helps you to understand that dark emotions are not bad, and it helps you to sort of go through them and not make yourself wrong for them. But it's coming up backwards, but it is, it's by Miriam Greenspan. It's called Healing Through Dark Emotions. The Wisdom of Grief, Fear, and Despair. pretty amazing book. So I highly encourage and recommend. And perhaps I'll read it once I'm done with my master's program. Maybe that's the book I'll read. I was reading the Four Agreements, but I feel like this Healing Through Dark Emotions is probably a bit more relevant for the times that we're in. Okay. But it's past 4:30. I know. I didn't wake up at 4:30 this morning either. I woke up at 6. So tomorrow I'll get enough rest. I'll be up at 4:30. But of course, I don't do this at 4:30. I get up and I stretch and then I make coffee and I just relax for a while and then I get on here. There's a lot of relaxing before I actually get on here. It's sort of like, oh, let me get my head together and let me just be with myself and stretch. Oh, stretch. Everybody just stretch. Big, nice stretch for your day. I'm going to get back into the Kundalini practice as well. So I'll let you know when that starts to happen. I've reached out to my friend who used to train me in Kundalini. So there you have it. I just love you guys so much. Thank you guys for, showing up for yourself. It's a hard time. If, you need support, reach out to me. I am here to help you through. Just kidding. No, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You can kid. I'm good. I like jokes. Okay. So there you have it. I love you guys. Have a great Tuesday. Have a terrific Tuesday. And I will keep you updated on, India, which I'm excited about. So have a great day and I will see y'all tomorrow. And I think I'm going to read this book. I think that's just hit me. I think this book, if you guys don't get it, I'm reading it. So there you go. Okay. So I love you guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.